Hey everyone, it's Wendy from Cinnamon Sweet Shop. Can you guess what my favorite holiday is? Well, of course, it's Halloween. And this series is going to be a two-part video series where I'm going to show you how to make both these cakes. This one's a little bit more advanced, but it's a lot of fun to make. I encourage even beginners to try to make it because it's just so much fun, and that's how you learn to make these things. If you don't want to give it a try, if you're in a hurry, I also have in part 2 of the video how to make this one-dimensional skull cake using the same pan. Now, I already did a previous video on the Wilton 3D cake pan, which I do have linked, so I encourage you to watch that one first, and then come on back and watch the next two videos, or this one and the next one. Now, with this type of three-dimensional cake, it's on a unique angle. So as you can see here, it tends to hang down where it's supposed to be a little bit more up. Now, because of this curved angle, when I buttercream the inside, it's not going to stay. So I'm going to have to put in at least one skewer or dowel, or you can even use a toothpick in there just to hold it together so that it holds the shape, or it stays in the position I want it to stay. Just don't forget they're in there if you're going to serve it, or if you're going to give it away to someone. Let them know there's a stick in there. You could also use a drinking straw if you don't happen to have these types of skewers on there. I'm going to measure with the tape measure around the side of, well, actually from front to back and from side to side. So I know roughly how much fondant I'm going to need for this. And this side is 16. Hold this up a little bit. Measure it down from this side to this side, and it's 15 on that side. And I might just add like ½ an inch to an inch around just to be on the safe side, because I would rather have too much fondant than not enough. So with the 1/2, I'm just going to put some buttercream filling on here, and you could be as generous as you want. And with the skewers, I kind of measured them out and cut them down a bit. And I'm going to place one on each side. Just have them even. And I'm going to just put the top part of the cake on. And that should hold it up. Just want to make sure it's even in there. Now, this is where I'm doing a crumb coating around the cake, and you just need a thin enough layer so that the fondant will stick to the cake. And it can be a little bit tricky in that this type of cake is shaped a little awkward, but you definitely want to fill in the cracks and crevices, and just make sure it's thoroughly coated. And for the eye sockets, the nose, the mouth, I'm going to be using a smaller spatula just to make sure they're all completely covered in there. And then I'm going to chill the cake in the refrigerator for about 10 to 20 minutes, just so that the buttercream will harden and it won't be real soft and gooey. After you take the fondant out of the wrapping, just knead it for about a minute or so to soften it up. And I'm kneading it on a fondant mat from Wilton. It's non-stick, but if you don't have that, you can use a counter or a silicone mat and just use some cornstarch if it starts to stick. Add in some ivory gel paste color, and just add a little bit at first. If you need more, you can always add more. Knead it in real well. If you don't knead it real well, you're going to have streaks in it, and you want the color to be even in the fondant. This may take a minute or two to do this, and if it's not dark enough, you can just add some more in till you get the shade that you're looking for. Roll out the fondant to about a 1/8 inch thickness, keeping it in a 15-inch circumference based on the measurements of the cake. You'll notice that I'm flipping it every now and then, and that's to stop it from sticking to the mat. And also when I roll the fondant, I start in the center and roll outward just to make sure it's a smooth, even roll. You can use a rolling pin to help lift the fondant up and place it around the cake by putting the pin in the center of the fondant. And my arm's in the way, but I am evenly putting that fondant around the cake, and then I'm going to smooth it out with my hands. Fondant is really easy to work with. Go around the sides and smooth it out. Make sure you fill in where the cracks and crevices are, and be sure also that your fingernails aren't real long or else you'll poke a hole in it. And you don't really want to stretch it too much or else you'll rip the fondant as well. Just with your hands you can go around and just push in a little bit, shape the face where the nose is, the teeth are, and then with the knife you can cut the excess off. Go around the cake with a fondant smoother to make sure all the fondant is attached to the cake. And then you want to highlight where the crevices are, and I'm using a Wilton fondant toolkit to do that, and it works really well. Go putting the jawbone in there where the teeth are. Next we're going to gently remove the fondant where the mouth is. Cover the mouth area with a piece of black fondant. To make the lips, I took some of the remaining ivory fondant and just added a little bit of red and a little bit of brown and kneaded it in real well to get a nice good color. And I took some small pieces of that fondant, rolled it into a thin log, and this will be for the lips. And with just a dab of water and a paintbrush, I'm going to attach the lips to the mouth. And you only want to use a real little bit of water or else it will ruin the fondant. Just enough to act as a glue. And I'm using a dull fondant knife just to cut away the excess and to tidy it up a bit. Make sure it's in there nice and firmly so it doesn't fall off or come apart. And with another fondant tool, I'm making indentations in the lip just to give it a little bit of a creepier look to this. And you don't want to forget to do the bottom lip, making sure it's securely onto the mouth. And also make sure that the ends, the corners of the mouth, are blended well together. Now this is probably the most tedious part of making this cake, are making the teeth. And you want to cut a real thin strip from the ivory fondant that's left over. And from there cut real small rectangles or squares depending on the shape of the teeth you want. And keep in mind too that as you go to the ends of the mouth, the corners, the teeth are going to be smaller. And with each tooth, dab it with water and put it in place. And as you can see, I had a bit of a problem putting them in because they were so small. But you could use either a pair of tweezers or one of the tools, the fondant tools that I was using to do that. To make the eyes, I rolled balls of black fondant about an inch in diameter, maybe a little less, and I attached them into the eye socket, again with just a little dab of water. To make the eyelids, I took the large end of a pastry tip and cut out a circle, and then cut the circle in half, so each eyelid is a semicircle. Then I wanted to make sure it was blended in there well, so I tidied it up a bit with one of the fondant tools. For the upper and lower eye muscle, I rolled out some more ivory fondant real thin, and again I glued it on there with just a little dab of water. Don't forget to do underneath the eye as well as the eyelid. I put some indentations in the forehead and around the face to make it look a little more realistic. And then I brushed some black food coloring along the nose just to make it look a little extra creepy. So for here, I took about a drop of brown gel paste color and I mixed it with a little bit of water, and I'm going to just, with the brush, just spread it all over his face, just lightly fanning it across, make him look a little more dirty. The forehead, I do the cheeks, the chin, the eyes, pretty much everything. And I also went and brushed along those nice white teeth that I had given him, make it look a little more zombie-like. I also took some Christmas red gel paste color, mixed that down a little bit with water, and went around his face, making it look like there was blood. So I went around his mouth, his teeth, his eyes. Hey everyone, I finished my 3D skull cake, zombie cake, cranium head, whatever you want to call it. Creepy, scary, but so much fun to make. And if you're a beginner, I encourage you to give this a try. You really can't screw this up because, I mean, it's ugly, you know? How can you make it even uglier? Actually, if you make it uglier, it'll look better. But if you are a beginner, don't want to give this a try, or if you're in a hurry, stick around to part 2 of this video. I'm going to show you how to make another type of skull cake in 5 minutes or less.